Good morning. Wanted to talk to you today about the chapter reading that you'll be doing this week. When you look at the chapter 10 concept, which is circuiting the globe, a practice matrix, I find it very interesting because it actually gives you a way to get into the material in a campaign and take into consideration the elements that are really important as far as evaluating how successful that campaign is. The chapter, it talks about international public relations, world, and the importance of worldview, and how this acknowledges assumptions based on history, organizational presence, age, class, gender. The practice matrix promotes a worldview by bringing together the moments of the circuit of culture into a practical format. So I'm going to turn in the book to the matrix, and you could do the same if you have your book handy on page 217. And what it starts with regulation, and it gives you a situational factor, a reference within the book. That's why this book is such an important book to keep, and it gives you action to take. So in other words, what type of government exists? Now, to read about that, you turn to chapter 1, page 6. If the term propaganda appears, consider its culture and origin and ethics surrounding its use. So this is an important matrix for the cultural economical model of PR within that country. Then it goes on, like, for example, what is the technological infrastructure of the host country? So the country you're preparing this international campaign for, what is the technological infrastructure? Is internet highly restricted? Does everyone have access to the internet? Is it a country where the have and have not situation prohibits a lot of the general population from being involved with viewing much of the internet? So you need to take a look at that. And there's a reference to a place within the chapter 4 on page 57 which discusses that. And then if the regulatory systems must be continuously monitored for changes in meanings, that's that would be your action. So you might have to say, okay, we have to continually look at what the regulations are and have they changed? Are they more restrictive? Is there something that impacts us in that area? So this matrix, in a way, I wish that the publisher had a link to a way to download this. I did search and it doesn't, but I think you could easily recreate this because you're going through and evaluating and looking at production, consumption, identity, representation, and this would be a great way as a PR practitioner to have an actual document in this matrix that you could discuss with your client about the ways that you must do PR while attempting to promote your campaign or product within that country. So I find that as just an invaluable piece of information for you to keep for your resources as you continue with your PR work. The chapter goes into great detail about this matrix and really focuses on that. And this, I think, is a great step in evaluating. So I think that it's important to really grasp that as you go through and read this chapter. If you have any questions, please do send me an email and I'll be happy to elaborate on it. Then as you move into the next chapter, we come to ethical considerations in global practice. And it's interesting how the material in the courses will overlap because we're also discussing ethics in another class now. So the ethical standard will vary from country to country because the ethics, the values are different. So there's a term used in this book called ethical relativism. And in discussing that, it explains that although adapting to local customs may be good manners and may foster better relations, doing so indiscriminately results in a lack of any set universal ethical standards, and it's known as ethical relativism. So in other words, they give us an example on page 237 of South Africa's apartheid policy, which meant that multinational organizations operating there had to segregate workers by racial groups. And so, there's a point where your higher ethical standard may trump what the country you're working in has. So there may be something you can't stomach or you can't do because your ethical standards will not allow you. And this chapter is important because, we have some of this within our own country. I have known students before that I've referred to firms and they were hired in a PR firm, and a campaign would come up for something that was against what they would want to do. And perhaps it was something regarding birth control or abortion or something of that nature in some way related to that. Well, what I've advised in the past and other PR professors at Christian universities is if you're very hardworking and willing to do excellent work in every area within the workplace, that when a campaign comes up that you just cannot ethically bring yourself to handle, at that point, if you are totally willing to do another project that you know is going on, most supervisors or your PR firm owners will allow that. I mean, it's even better if you can just get a job that really has the same values as the firm represents a Christian family or a Christian group that there are very similar values, but sometimes that's not the case. But if you are an excellent hard worker, good attitude, and you've followed all of those standards of presenting yourself as an excellent team member, often they will allow you to work on another campaign rather than the one that you have a problem with. So this comes up sometimes here in the United States, but definitely in the global marketplace, you will find ethical challenges. And the code of ethics are discussed in this chapter. Ethics emerge as the confluence of the moments of regulation and identity. Although ethics is inherent in all aspects of PR, ethics are extremely important in PR because PR is about influence. And if someone takes these skills and strategies and tries to influence someone to do something that is not ethically sound, I find that to be an evil situation. So ethics are totally intertwined, which is why I say the best practice is to find a meeting of the minds before you work for a PR firm or for a group, with you may be doing PR in-house for a different business or entity. And in that case, you want to find one that you can at least feel comfortable with their ethical standards on most of their practices. You might not have 100%, but most. So international practice must balance organizational norms with the respect for local practices. An enlightened self-interest leads to short-term measures, paternalism, and poor public relations. Also, it discusses philanthropy results from partnering with other organizations and local communities to resolve issues and address underlying root causes leading to effective PR. So practitioners must assume a traitorous identity, deconstructing dominant discourse, challenging organizational assumptions, and seeking out and valuing diversity and dissent. So sometimes you, as the PR person, when you're coming into a situation, you are coming in and you're deconstructing what really matters to them and the ethical principles behind it. And sometimes you run into a lot of things along the way. There may be certain views in a certain country about women or cultural, just the way people are supposed to behave. It may be different castes or classes. So you need to understand all of that, and you may actually find yourself counseling and helping them to deconstruct these feelings so that they can analyze it and improve the way they treat their fellow man. So it's just interesting how PR people are often in these challenging communication roles where you're looking at ethical situations and finding a common ground and actually facilitating growth. So those two chapters are there for you today. I'm going to switch over to Blackboard here so I can talk to you about what you're doing this week. This week you have your reading assignments. Your lecture notes, I'm lecturing you now, just a brief lecture to kind of highlight those main points. You have a reading assignment regarding Chapter 11, a discussion board regarding the Abercrombie and Fitch situation discussed on page 229, and a blog. So that's what's going on. But I also encourage you to switch over to week 8, which I'm doing now. I know you can't see my screen, but if you have your computer open, you can take a look at this as well while I'm talking about it. So next week you have Chapter 12, which is the future of international public relations, kind of a fitting place to end the course. You're going to do your evaluation discussion board. If you've not already done your evaluation of the course, you can do it at that point. You have a final, and you have a critical assignment paper. So I encourage you this week, week 7, which is a little lighter, to work ahead on that critical assignment paper or that final. I don't mind that at all, and that actually helps you to stay on track a little bit. And I want to let you know that for the fall classes, you have a little bit of a break, because I believe we end on August 25th or 6th. Let me take a look at that so I can tell you for sure exactly when we end. I'm opening up my calendar here. Academic calendar. Okay. Yes, our session closes on August 25th. And at that point, your new class will begin on September 3rd. So hallelujah, we finally have a little break between the classes. I'm very excited about that because sometimes it's just a matter of hours and we're into the next class. So again, this book, several of our students who've already taken this class kept this book because it is just so interesting. Of course, it's good to keep all of your books because as those who are working on the capstone project have found, they're going back. And of course, you have access to Blackboard and you can see the work you did before, as you write your capstone paper. But when you have the actual text, it's much better. So I'm actually encouraging everyone to keep the text. I mean, unless you are doing your textbooks on CourseSmart, then of course you'll have access that way. But either keep notes from it or keep the text itself to help you in your future courses. But this one is definitely a keeper. So you should be commended that all three of you in this class have worked so well. I mean, it's just the way the classes came because you three came aboard in the winter last year. And so, as I've said before, that's why you've had this small class. We have a lot of new students starting. I'm really happy about that coming up here in September. So if I can be of any help to you, please let me know. I'm happy to pray for you, help you in any way I can. God bless you, and I'll talk to you later.